Hey, what's happening? Before we jump into the show, I wanted to see if you had any music on a hard drive. You have a band, you have a project, and you want to self-release your own music. Well, there's an easy way to do it. You can go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate and go get your music up on all the streamers. You keep 100% of your royalties, and you can get 30% off by using this code. It's a great, easy way to get your music up on the streamers and share it with your fans, your friends, your family, your mom, your dog, everybody. Everyone wants to hear it. But go to distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate, HYPHENATE, and send me the link. I want to hear it too. Send your mom the link. Send your dog the link. They all want to hear it too. We'd like to thank our sponsor, iZotope, the absolute leaders in intuitively designed plugins for audio restoration, mixing, and mastering. At iZotope.com, you'll find a plethora of tools and suites that will enhance your audio production, whether it's voice, video, podcast, or a full production recording session. Check out the industry-standard audio repair tool, RX11, or the multi-tool mixer plugin, Neutron 5, or the powerful Ozone 11 mastering suite, plus tons more. Go to iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout for 10% off. That's FRET10 to get 10% off at checkout. And again, the website is iZotope.com, IZOTOPE.com.
I'm socially anxious. I certainly was in the early 80s, but the people whose floors I slept on, I'm still friends with today. Tom in Cleveland introduced me to Trent in 1985.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning in to Hyphenate. This is me, Randy Randall, your host. Happy Thanksgiving. This is our show for November 27th. On today's show, you heard him there in the beginning, I have Mr. Martin Atkins, drummer extraordinary from so many incredible bands: PIL, Killing Joke, Pigface. I think there was some Nine Inch Nails in there. The aforementioned Trent was Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. An industrial percussionist, experimental post-punk icon, Martin Atkins. Thank you, Justin Pearson, for setting up this interview. This weekend in Chicago, if you are anywhere near the Chicagoland area, go get tickets to Reggie's to see Martin and company, including Justin Pearson and other cohorts, perform the Killing Jokes record, or reinterpreting the Killing Jokes record, Extremities, at Reggie's in Chicago. That is this weekend. It's a very special weekend. You can also go to his post-punk industrial museum. There is so much cool stuff. There are links in the show notes to all of this stuff. But yeah, Martin is quite a storyteller. We talk about touring, recording, performing. I mean, he is a raconteur and has stories for days. I'm sure Martin could have his own podcast easily and be far more entertaining than I am. So, Martin, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And Justin, thank you for putting this together. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're surviving the holidays and not going anywhere too far, not being anywhere too cold or too hot. I don't know. Maybe some people are hot on Thanksgiving. But I thank everybody for listening, for tuning in, dropping out. Hopefully podcasts get you through this weekend of travel and driving and family time and cooking and cleaning and all this stuff. I do love putting on podcasts and doing the dishes. That's my kind of like zone out moment. I will sort of just go tuck away and wash up dishes and put on a good podcast. So if you're doing that, hello there. I hope you get through these dishes. I hope you enjoy this moment of zen, of peace and quiet. You can always write us here at the show at hyphenatehalftime@gmail.com. You can find me on the Instagram at Randy S. Randall. Let me know what gets you through the holidays, how you're surviving. What are you listening to? What are you doing? What's being creative for you? Sometimes it's fun on these breaks. You get to go do something different, go see old friends. Yeah, I hope all of that works for you in your favor. All right. Well, without further ado, here is my interview with the one and only Mr. Martin Atkins. Martin, wow, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure to meet you and get to chat for a little while. How are you this morning?
I'm good, losing my mind, but good.
All right. Yeah. This is in celebration of a show you have coming up. We want to let everybody know that in Chicago at Reggie's on November 28th, you have a show. Tell me a bit about it. It's focusing on the Killing Joke record Extremities with guests. How do you describe this evening? What do we have to expect?
Well, so I think I have an increased level of consciousness about anniversary things. And that's just from having the museum and the website and the Patreon and all that stuff. And so turns out November is the 35th anniversary of the Extremities album. It was a very important album for myself, I think, in the evolution of Killing Joke, at a very difficult period for Killing Joke. It features Paul Raven, bass player, who I was connected at the hip with, and of course, guitarist Jody Walker, neither of whom are with us anymore. So it was this kind of a desire to play, a desire to celebrate this album, a desire to ring the bell for these people who no longer are with us. And it just kind of got out of hand from there, honestly. I mean, it's not a simple thing for me to play my drums anymore. And and this album isn't a simple album. I don't know how deep you want me to go into it. The pitch would be, of course, Killing Joke doesn't exist anymore to do this album. And even when it did exist, this album was not played. Maybe 2 songs from it, Money's Not Our God and The Beautiful Dead. But even when I was in the band for a few years in the early 90s, we only maybe did 4 songs, maybe 5 from this album. So it's pretty wild to dig into this. I talked to Justin Pearson, who's a friend of mine, like, hey, do you want to play bass on this? I called Randy Blythe from Lamb of God. I'm like, hey, are you a Killing Joke fan at all? And he sent me a screenshot of a chapter in his new book, which is called Money Is Not Our God. Like, yes, I'm a fan, Like, okay, so Randy's down. Steven Siebold from Hate Department on guitar. I just couldn't think of anybody I'm trying to find the words here, so excuse me.
Sure.
Like, not to recreate, who has the spirit, understands Geordie's spirit. Stephen made there was a project that Geordie and I were involved in outside of Killing Joke called The Damage Manual. And when Geordie wasn't able to do that, Stephen came in and played on an album called Limited Edition. And it's like, I mean, if there ever was an audition tape for a Geordie Walker, that would be it. So Stephen is on guitar. Orville Klein, who runs samples in my other band, Pigface, is running samples on this. And Steven Silva, who tour managed us, slightly might have dealt drugs with us, was security at a club called Exit. He's now sober and working on his second book. He will come out and speak a little bit, as will I. Tara Bush from I Speak Machine, who's just ferocious, and I love her. And Nicola Couperus from Adult. Layla Royale on cello. And I'm looking for a solo trumpet player, a small choir. One of my favorite rappers from the south side of Chicago, this woman called Day, D-A-I. She jumped out with Pigface in 2019, which I can't believe is 5.5 years ago. She's going to come and do this to a couple of songs. So we're going to try and recreate these songs in this album, but I think more importantly, recreate the vibe, which doesn't always mean faithfully reproducing the song. I think faithfully reproducing is the starting point. And then what is the mood? If this is going to make me cry, how can I do more of that? How can I Disneyfy this moment? And sad solo trumpet on a song called Termite Mound is it for me. So I don't know how familiar you are with the album, but we're kind of fascinating ourselves with like, what the fuck is this? What do we do? And at the same time, I'm looking at this as a 66-year-old drummer with a replacement hip. That's not nothing.
No.
Playing beats. I was a stone cold savage 35 years ago.
Absolutely.
The only thing I'd done up until that point was play drums since I was 9. I think I had 10 years off at some point in the last 30 years, So some of this has been me grappling with
feat.
Yeah. And some of this has, honestly, I spent a bit of time crying. There's a weird thing. There's a weird thing that happens when you have somebody that passes. Maybe you have like a shoebox with some photographs in, and you come across some photographs and ping, 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 or something that happens. There's a sandwich. Every time I have this sandwich, I'll never forget whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you discover that this really important thing about music, it's like a time tunnel back emotionally back into this time. So just listening to a couple of these songs was just like, oh, fuck, just difficult. So we're all kind of doing this together, kind of celebrating it.
It's an interpretation to some degree too, kind of presenting it, not just to note for note, but to sort of translate it in a live format that fits this time and sort of what that experience feels like. No small undertaking. Absolutely huge.
Right.
And this is a one-off show. This won't be a touring affair as of yet. So far, this is just for the one evening at Reggie's.
Oh God!
I don't know. I just ask. I don't know. I mean, this is there's an unfolding to this. I don't know when this will go out. This will be just probably before the show. Yeah, we're somewhere in October here.
So
November 28th at Reggie's in Chicago.
So we're looking at the 29th, and the way this sits across Thanksgiving, I think we're going to do a dress rehearsal at Reggie's, which will be an invite only on Thanksgiving Day, the 27th.
I see.
So it's kind of a new format for me instead of getting in a bus for 6 weeks, especially now I have this museum.
I want to talk about all that. Yeah.
It's not an easy thing. So I think this will turn out to be maybe 3 days over at Reggie's, and a way that I'm going to look at doing some things in the future.
Kind of a residency model where you can kind of post up for a place and do some invites, some special, some speaking, some playing. That's a great idea. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me about, you've mentioned the museum. Tell me a little bit about the museum, and then I'd love to go back to the beginning. We'll do some biography stuff as well. We'll go back to the beginning, but I want to make sure we touch on the museum as well and give a plug for that up at the top.
Well, the museum. I mean, I've done some crazy shit. I got my nose and my jaw broken. I got into a fight with Gigi Allen, his band, and his audience, and won for about 2 hours until Gigi found me in the bathroom while I was pissing and broke my nose, knocked me unconscious, and then kicked me in the face and broke my jaw. I toured with Ministry. I toured with Johnny Rotten and Killing Joke and Pigface with 7 drummers and Genesis P. Orridge and 3 bass players. I've done some crazy shit. this museum thing has to be the craziest, most challenging, most fueling, surprising thing on so many levels that I've done. I mean, it started as I've got all these things from my career and having a record label, Invisible Records. We put out over 300 albums since 1988. And then also having Pigface with 5 or 6 or 700 members. You end up with stuff, you know. I thought it was a good starting point just to display this stuff for a while. I don't remember thinking it might just be for a while, but I do remember thinking the first August of this, August 2021, we started in April 2021. I remember thinking there's a festival called Cold Waves at the end of September. Why don't we do a thing for Cold Waves? We'll have whiskey, peach mimosas, and we'll make pancakes, and it will be wild. And what a great way to end. And then it was such a wild weekend. I'm like, well, my goodness, I've got to keep this going through Thanksgiving and Christmas. Why wouldn't I? You know, and now here we are 4.5 years in. It's there hasn't been a week and hardly a day where something hasn't arrived as a donation to the museum. It really is. It's wild. And when we have events focused on Killing Joke or ministry, or just as we've had a few times recently with Nine Inch Nails, something will happen where a story emerges and somebody will say, well, hold on a minute, I've got this from that. And then there's some investigation, like I guess museums do, and we get more information to pass on to the next group of people coming around the museum. It's wild. And I think you might think, if you were just thinking this through, as I did at the beginning, this will be my last thing. This will be the beginning of my sad, long decline. I mean, I think these are really normal thoughts to have. And the people coming to the museum will be older and older and less mobile, and we'll all be in this together. And at some point, after my hip replacement, it got quite complicated. At one point, I was just pointing, sitting in a chair with my walker, pointing over my shoulder with a laser pointer. The truth is, it's re-energized me. The visitors have been younger and younger and younger, to the point where we've had several people, never mind PIL, my tenure in PIL was 79 to 85, but we've had people in there who weren't born when Pretty Hate Machine came out. Like, what? And somehow...
Was that 92? No, 91? When was that?
91.
Yeah.
Like, so they just, but their love of this music, they can't go back in time to these periods, but they can come and visit the museum and smell it and witness it and sit in it, you know, and it's just been so surprising and wonderful. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, I feel like that's a huge service you do for the music community as well. You know, of not keeping these things, you know, behind lock and key, but having them out for display and sort of engaging into that, you know, the history of things. But I think how do you place it? I guess just in the sense of, I mean, I'm sure you've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum and these other, you know, these types of things. Where do you? You know, in the fine British tradition of taking the piss, you know, out of yourself, like how do you find, you know what I mean? How do you put it on measure of celebrating these things and also keeping it humble and real?
Well, I think I did. Sometimes I can do really smart things. And I think one of the smartest things I did at the beginning of the museum, instead of saying, come and visit the museum because I'm an expert, I just said, listen, I've got all this stuff. it could be organized a little bit better. Forgive us. We'll do it as we go. We'll put all the stuff on the walls, and let's experience this together. And I never placed myself as an expert, and thank goodness,
You
because
certainly
I'm not.
could. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have firsthand experience, you could tell your story.
I'm an expert in periods of my shit
Sure.
and other bits around it, because I've heard some stories. But I think that was a good approach, because I'm just discovering this as we go, and I'll say to people, somebody donated the Nine Inch Nails Year Zero ammo box, which has all these flyers and buttons and stickers and patches and a phone and all the stuff in there. And sometimes I'll say to Nine Inch Nails fans, "Are you familiar with this?" They're like, "No." I'm like, "Don't worry. Neither was I." It was donated to the museum, and I remember thinking, Year Zero, I haven't heard of this band. What is this? And it sat on a shelf for a year until my studio engineer, Tom, said, this is the Nine Inch Nails limited edition Year Zero box set. What do you do? And I kind of learnt about it with it in the building, which kind of makes me kind of delighted about it and all this other stuff. But fortunately, it's becoming less, as it becomes less about my collection of stuff, it's less about me. And I think that's great. When I'm down in the studio, I'm happy to play people some of my work, some unreleased Pill, the earliest Nine Inch Nails demos, work mixes for Skinny Puppy, all of these things that I've worked on. But we've recently received Joy Division and New Order demos from 1980, 1981.
Wow.
And those have got nothing to do with me other than somebody gave them to us, So I think the more it goes like that, and it's going like that a lot, the more I like it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's almost like your collection was the kickoff point. It's the spark that'll light the fire, that'll kind of draw a community together and say, okay, this is a place that we know our collections will be safe, or then the ephemera and the collections that people inherit because obviously as time goes, these ephemera or these pieces of history will be passed down from generations, and there's only so much you can do. At some point, you want a safe haven for these things and to know that they'll be enjoyed.
And enjoyed and honored.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that we're doing there, which I just love and I didn't anticipate, we're rehearsing for the Extremities project in the museum. Like my drum kit is there at the end of the big room. We have 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. We're expanding upstairs to get another 2,000 square feet. But my kit was there, and everybody came in, and we had rehearsal space booked. And we went and rehearsed on a Tuesday evening, and it was good, And then on the Wednesday, I said, listen, before we go to the rehearsal space, my drums are here. Let's set up, and we'll do a little bit of footage. We'll create some content, and then we'll go to the rehearsal space. And Stephen plugged his guitar rig in, and me and Stephen started playing, and Justin was there. We have the Killing Joke bass rig, Bob Weston's shellac practice bass rig, and Justin plugged into both of them, And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. And it sounded great. I'm like, well, let's rehearse here. And the idea that if there was one of those like museum cards in front of the bass rig,
Yeah.
it would have said Bob Weston, shellac, practice bass rig. And I would have had to run up to cross that out, also used by Justin Pearson for the Extremities project. I'm like,
you're making history here.
Yeah, this is exactly what I want. We are bathing in the vibe and perpetuating the vibe as well. And it's just great. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. Let's go back to the beginning. Tell me, where did drums come into your life? What was that what were those early experiences like, and how did that evolve? I mean, obviously we know, the list of bands is is legendary. But where did it all start?
My dad bought me a drum kit when I was 9. I mean, and that's it. I mean, my dad worked really hard for the family. He was absent. He was ended up in control of a factory with 3,000 employees, and so if he'd bought me a lawnmower, this would be a conversation about my new landscape gardening series. I played my drums for 4 or 5 hours a night till my hands bled. Joined my first band when I was 11.
And was this was just unbridled energy? You were bouncing off the walls as a kid. Your dad said, "Put some sticks in his hand, let him hit something. Let's at least control the chaos. Let's put it."
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
And I just played and played and played. I played along with records, and then by the time I was ready to join a band, I was 11 or 12. And it just went from there. Left school when I was 16. Had some auditions 300 miles away in London. Missed the first PIL auditions, and regretted that. And then that drove me to move to London and then kind of stalk John and PIL and get involved in that whole, the explosion of punk and post-punk. And
that's incredible. Yeah. And what was that opportunity like when you did get to the second audition, or the next time you did get to sit in?
But it wasn't an audition so much. I mean, so the first edition Pill album came out, and they were working on what would become the Metal Box. And I think they went through 6 or 7 drummers in a short period. Carl Burns from The Fall was ironically set on fire. Richard Dudansky. Who was Richard Dudansky with? I don't remember.
This is Spinal Tap level legend. Yeah.
And a couple of other people who I've spoken with. And I thought I was going to an audition. Like, why wouldn't you? I was just 20. And I walk into this room, the townhouse, like, oh, okay. Like, I didn't know many of the rehearsal spaces in London, but the townhouse was the same studio that Queen did We Will Rock You.
Wow.
Phil Collins did In the Air Tonight in Studio 2. It's where I did the drums for Extremities. They were in Studio 1. It was the size of a freaking basketball court. I don't think I'd spent more than 10 hours in a recording studio before that. And somebody points at the drum kit. Like, what the hell? I sit behind the drum kit. I put the headphones on, and the engineer hits the talkback, rolling. And the next 5.5 minutes was a song called Bad Baby.
Wow.
I co-wrote and played that with Wobble and Keith. And I'm like, what the? I mean, just, it was ridiculous.
So there was no audition. You didn't even meet the band. You sat down and you were recording a record.
I think my meeting of the band, John and Jeanette were sat on this Chesterfield. There were Chesterfield couches everywhere back there. John's house, Keith's flat, the townhouse. And John sat on this Chesterfield. And you've got to remember, this is 1980 Johnny Rotten. Punk hasn't even hardly got going before it's exploded, and now it's post. Everybody's starting labels. It's a revolution. I'm like, it's fucking Johnny Rotten on the couch, And by that point, I was that northerner. I'd called a few times. I spoke to Jeanette, the people at Virgin, and with Keith. I was just this kid from the north of England. It's like, oh, it's that northerner, And so I wasn't even in the band. I just co-wrote a song, and then I went back to my government job just off of Trafalgar Square as an assistant for the unemployment office. And a couple of weeks later, I got a call to meet John Wobble at a rehearsal space under London Bridge. I'm thinking, okay, here we go. It was just me and Wobble. And we played each of the songs for about a minute. Just played the riffs. If there was a change, we played it to the change and back around. I remember Wobble got up, went to the payphone, talked to Jeanette Lee and said, yeah, he's got it. Booked the gig. And the gig was in Paris in January. became my first two gigs with Pill became a live album called Paris au Printemps. And we didn't rehearse for that. We had a rehearsal scheduled, but because it was 1980s Johnny Rotten, it wasn't simple for us to just go to a rehearsal space. So we went to this abandoned warehouse. Some of the equipment was set up. There was water everywhere. There wasn't much electricity. And we were just like, oh, fuck it. We just went to Paris and played these shows. We did the John Peel sessions. And then in April of 1980, came to America for the first PIL American tour. We did 10 shows in 6 weeks that included American Bandstand.
Wild. And these were the songs you knew from the record you knew, so you could be at home practicing with headphones on and just you're playing the record. That's the idea.
Yeah, I don't know that I played them as much. I had a pair of sticks and a pillow in my apartment in Willesden Green in London. But I mapped the songs out. So by writing them out in my own dot dash notation, yeah. I just knew what the songs were.
Great. Well, that's amazing. And was this this was the style of music you were excited about? I mean, this was obviously, it was burgeoning. No one had really quite done it like this. Post-punk was an emerging sort of thing. Had your earlier bands been punk bands? Were you a straight ahead drummer? Was this something you were interested in, a more primitive reggae sort of dub drum idea? Or tell me a little stylistically. No. I mean, your drum style has obviously been documented. It's legendary. But I mean, I'm just curious what some of those influences were, or how you sort of, arrived at this style that would influence
my influences, my early influences were Billy Cobham, Cozy Powell.
Oh yeah,
all of those heavy rock drummers, because that's what was happening in '72. So we aspired to be faster and more complicated and more rototoms and I listened to Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa, and then in the middle of all of that, I was in a band called The Mind, MYND, and we had a Mellotron, and I think the guitarist had a twin neck guitar, like 12 string and 6 string, to make the switch easier from the madrigal bullshit middle 8 section to the 8-minute long outro in a off time signature. And then punk comes along, it's like, what the fuck? My friend's brother was the drummer in a band called Penetration. I'm like, but it became slightly frightening, because I've been practicing since I was 9, and here comes punk. It says, oh, fuck that. Here's a chord, here's another, here's the third, start a band, which punk was. I love the spirit of that, but punk also needed some decent drummers who could,
you just count out 1, 2, 3, 4, stop at the end, 2 minutes later.
But I immediately dove into punk, which wasn't even punk. It was XTC, the Cars. I mean, at one point, the Knack were kind of punk, which they never were. The Clash, how was the Clash? They were punk, dub, reggae, pop, but they wore combat outfits. So it was like, oh, fuck, And then, of course, there's all the punk bands as well, and the UK Subs and the Lurkers and the Exploited and Undertones and Wire, and all of this shit is going on. And we're in London. I saw U2 play to 12 people. And it's funny. I did an interview with Melody Maker when I joined Pill, and they're like, "What? Tell us about your drumming, Martin." And I could have spoken about Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa, Billy Cobham, and I just said, "I'm not a drummer. I just hit things."
Perfect. Like, there's the headline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all had this background, perhaps Beatlesy background, whatever. But we all denied it and just got on with it. And then it was being in Pill that introduced me to dub and reggae and the deep dub, because that was John's thing. So it was a spliff, Bag of Speed, Red Stripe, and just listening to dub on John's insane triple tannoy walnut cabinet speakers, and then working with Wobble on his solo album at Gooseberry Studios with Mark Lusardi, who was a dub mixer, so we're all mixing dub and Pill is dub and we're aspiring to all of this stuff.
It's incredible. That's incredible. And then from there, where do you go next? I mean, there's several projects. I mean, there's the sort of the creation and sort of distillation of what would then become industrial music. Sort of seems to be the next sort of revolution. But there's many versions and many sort of iterations that happened prior to that. Like, maybe walk me through some of those moments.
Well. I mean, industrial was happening before punk, and then if you listen to Flowers of Romance Pill, which is 81, 82, I'm playing drums to the ticking of a Mickey Mouse watch. I mean, that's industrial. Sure. Throbbing Gristle are recording telephones with a binaural sampling stereo microphone. Like, well, what is music? What are we doing? And Music Concrete, and there's a bunch of that on Flowers of Romance, and some beats that are directly inspired by the Chieftains and an Irish Baran, So it's all just going like that. And I mean, the luxury of being in a band with Johnny Rotten, I mean, we could all say, fuck the Sex Pistols, it's John Lydon, not Johnny Rotten, how dare you? But that history allowed us to be in the studio that Mike Oldfield did Tubular Bells in, that Queen recorded We Will Rock You in, and to have the confidence or the just not caring to fuck around in those studios without any recorded demos, just coming up with ideas on the spot, So that experimentation, we weren't necessarily improvising or thinking about improvising, but on stage with Pill, we had to improvise because of what other bullshit might be going on. Riot police, German shepherds on stage, riot police outside on horseback, police helicopters, people storming the stage, stealing the equipment, insane amounts of gobbing, just, whatever, So we would, the audience and the situation became part of the band in terms of our improvisation, which then became part of some of my work with Killing Joke and then certainly Pigface.
It's almost a improvised performance art in this kind of way of just embracing the chaos and what was happening. Yeah. Let's talk about Killing Joke. I mean, and kind of leading up to that album, to Extremities and further, what was that? I mean, they were going at the same time as PIL and were on parallel tracks in some regards. Did you know them at that time in the early 80s and had become friends, or where did your paths cross?
It's really weird, like it's now, maybe it's because I'm 66 or it's a different time. I'd be like, hello, Martin Atkins, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we were, I'm still socially awkward, but I make an effort to talk to people so I don't appear like I'm an asshole, But
it's something you learn in your 60s. It doesn't come naturally in your 20s.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being in an elevator with The Clash at the Iroquois Hotel. They were doing like 17 shows at Bonds in Times Square. And it was like, I fucking dare you to say anything, It's it could, instead of like, oh my God, it's the Clash and Pill in an elevator. Who would I hope there isn't an elevator accident, otherwise post-punk as we know it is going down the toilet. But it's just like, I remember Joe Wobble and I were on time for a session at Gooseberry Studios. And Killing Joke were running late, so our paths crossed a bit. I was dating Beth Ann Peters, one of the bass players from Delta 5, and she was friends with Youth. So I met Youth at a Killing Joke show, and we talked for a little bit. So we were aware of each other. But I was so excited to join Killing Joke because the catalogue of songs at that point, oh my goodness, Change, 80s, The Wait, Love Like Blood, Kings and Queens, Nighttime. Did I say Change?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, like, oh my, So,
It's no small feat, any of those things. Yeah.
oh, and it was delightful, and then to get to work on some new songs as well, the Extremities album. But what happened? Killing Joke introduced me to Al Jorgensen. So they knew Al from England and Al's first wife, Patty. So it's like, oh, we're playing in Chicago. We got to call up Al and Patty. We end up at their loft after the show, which is basically a nightclub. Al says to me, I want you to come on tour with Ministry. I'm like, yeah, well, okay. People say all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
And then I end up back in Chicago, and all of this to kind of illustrate, while I'm in Killing Joke, I do the Cage tour with Ministry, which was insane. And halfway through the Ministry tour, I start my band Pigface. So it's just this, it's not linear. Which band were you in then? And what, it was just,
all at once, on top of
and
each
all
other.
the bands,
Yeah.
all the bands involved in the Chicago industrial scene are working on side projects with each other. Palehead with Ian Mackay from
Sure.
Fugazi, and Albini's involved. David Yao is involved in my band Pigface. And it's just going like this. So what that meant was, when we started to work on Extremities for real, I'm like, guys, I was just on the road with Ministry. It's not enough anymore for Killing Joke to be 1980 Killing Joke. Things have moved on. That was a decade earlier almost. Things are adrenalized.
There's a revolution happening here.
Yeah, and it was really important to me because, I didn't want Killing Joke to be not taken seriously. And Killing Joke had inspired most of Al's catalog, And so I wanted Killing Joke to stay relevant. And Jazz and I really got into it. Jazz was writing songs. He's a classical composer. He leans towards some melodramatic ballads at time. I'm like, not fucking here, mate. Not, we're not having any Billy Joel's cast-offs. And there were some songs he was like, here we go, and waiting for me to give a stick click and like maybe a little beat. I'm like, no, I'm having no involvement.
You're not playing this game. Because he, in terms of his career, he's probably slowing down a little bit. Figures he's done his aggressive young man stage and now is looking to mature into, and maybe this kind of elder statesman. He's won his awards, or he's gotten his credits. But that's
right.
but here you are on the front lines of this industrial revolution happening, coming out of Chicago and through America. Letting them know you're not going to bed yet, old man. We're keeping you. Right. We're going to keep you up. We're going to keep you.
Right.
Keep you young.
And I don't want any of this to seem incorrect or disrespectful, because one of the things, like, well, I don't know if to make this generalization. Would that any musician be blessed to be in a situation and a circumstance to look back at an album from 35 years previously that was an important part of everyone's development, and take it apart and put it back together again? Because if anything, I have more respect for Jazz and Geordie and Albini, who helped us with the demos, and Paul Raven and John Bechtel, who did the keep. Like, it's just, so I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way to any of this.
Understood. Yeah.
But it just, my goodness, some of Jazz's melodies are either on the keyboards or he's singing across things, with things, over things. It's wild. So many times in rehearsals, we're like, what the fuck is going on? But so Jazz keeps sending these cassettes from England Geordie is living in Detroit, and we got tired of sending these faxes. It was faxes back then. I don't know if there was much internet. We're getting cassettes in the mail and we're sending irate faxes. No, not doing it. Geordie came out from Detroit to my place in Chicago, and we went to Steve Albini's house. He had his studio at his house then, and we did 6 of the demos for Extremities. I think most notably and closest to the finished song, I mean, almost, well, pretty much complete, was a song called Money's Not Our God, which became the single.
Yeah.
And Geordie's playing distorted fuck off feedback bass and his guitars. Albini's engineering. I'm playing the drums to an 8-track half-inch tape machine, and we sent that to Jazz. We said, "This is what we're doing. This is it. No more faxing or cassette ballads in the mail, you know." And that, I think we got our point across, and then we all worked really hard. I think we understood what was required, and John Bechtel came in, and listening to his contribution, wow, it's just stellar and timely and very respectful and innovative. You know, the loops and the sounds and the textures he put on the album are just amazing.
And was that a new position in the band, of kind of having somebody in this sort of sound design area? And how did that sort of come around?
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a keyboard player because Jazz didn't want to play keyboards and sing. Jazz played the OBXA keyboards, which were temperamental. But to have that input, like, what about this? You know, scraping fingernails on a chalkboard. Let me interpret that sound and loops and textures. That was new for sure. Yeah.
That's incredible. And you know, before we move past this demoing era, what was your relationship like with Steve Albini? Had you worked on other projects with him? Would you go on to work with him more and get to know him, just being in this area? Maybe we could say a few nice words about Albini and his contributions.
Steve was part of the Chicago Soup. Paul Barker said, in answer to the question, how did Ministry go from a synth pop band to fucking Ministry? He said, we went to a Big Black show. I mean, you talk about Chicago icons, Cynthia Plasticaster, Steve Albini with Big Black and his recording studio. Boom. He was, he used to always ask me for my drumsticks. And I'm like, oh, God bless him. He's such a fan. And then a year, I knew him for a while. I was at his birthday party before I moved to Chicago. And I'm at a barbecue for the 4th of July. I'm like, here we go, you know. And the Jesus Lizard were all there and everybody. And here comes Steve with a bag of my drumsticks. I'm like, wow, this is a strange fanboy moment. And my drumsticks were hickory. And he puts them all on the barbecue. And I'm like, you know,
fuck off. I had to pay for those.
I'm like, oh my God, you know. But I mean, so we did the first Pigface album. Steve played some guitar, engineered that. The Murder Inc. album with Geordie and Big Paul Ferguson. He engineered that up at Pachyderm Studios in Cannon Falls, Minnesota, where Nirvana did In Utero with him.
Was that before or after the Nirvana record?
I don't know. I'm the museum guy, so what do I know?
Yeah. I need to look it up. I can find the date. I'm just curious if that was where he found the studio with you and then you know, transferred it over, or vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
But 2 years after doing the demos with Steve, I bought his studio from him, and he came over with Bob Weston and set up my studio for me, and we were talking till the end. Really, he was going to come and speak. I teach at Millikan University in Decatur, Illinois. He was going to come and speak at our conference, and yeah, very sad.
Wow. Well, I mean, yeah, what a legend, you know, in the world. Yeah. I would love to talk a little bit about your teaching and your education, your academia world a little bit too, just touching on that. I mean, this is the Hyphenate show where we talk to people who do many things. I mean, how did that begin? What was that process like, starting, and how does it find you now?
I started teaching by accident. We were doing some really big tours with Invisible Records. Pigface, Thrill Kill Call, Zero, Mansa from Norway, like 5 bands on 2 buses with a street team around the country. 80,000 promotional postcards with 10 different partners and 20,000 promotional CDs with Jägermeister. So I went to Columbia College, Chicago, to get some help, to get some interns. And I did a presentation for the faculty, and they said, when could you start? I'm like, I could put interns in my car now. And they're like, no, when could you start teaching? I'm like, what are you talking? What are you talking about? And I left school when I was 16. I have my master's degree now, but I left school when I was 16. And they're like, well, you should be teaching the business of touring. And the craziest thing I could think of to say was like, yeah, and I thought that was an interesting opportunity. I have 4 kids. I had 2 kids then. I thought, well, this will be good. This is kind of a dad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Turned out there wasn't a book for touring, so I wrote one. That became an Amazon Music Business bestseller. True to my punk DIY roots, I released it myself. And next thing you know, I'm speaking all over the world. I went to Norway 5 times, all over England, South by Southwest, 13 years as a featured speaker. I'm keynoting Melbourne Music Week in Australia. Like, fuck it. Well, a good thing too, because the music business, thank you, Spotify, fell off a cliff, And I love teaching. And I think teaching's been really good for me because sometimes I'll be doing a presentation for the 50th time in 3 years, and I'll look at a slide and go, fucking hell, I should listen to my own shit. And I do, and it helps me,
It's incredible. Well, there's nothing like selling books to a classroom full of students. When you put on the syllabus, they all have to buy it if they want to pass the class. That's a good way to sell self-published books as well.
But here's the problem. I like teaching what they call at-risk kids, and sometimes it's like, look, here's a download. I'm not teaching here's a download. Buy a T-shirt. So yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, how have you found, just in that world? I mean, I know from my own personal experience, I started touring in earnest in probably 2003, and at 22 years old, and have spent a good amount of time out on the road, and for my 2 decades, doing it, it's changed quite a bit. It is a different world now. I mean, to the point, in 2025, it's becoming financially almost impossible to really survive on the road. How do you account for that in your speaking and teaching, and what is your point of view on that? Or anybody listening who are young and trying to tour and get out on the road, how do you speak to the sort of current times we're in?
Be careful. But immediately 2 words in, and it's a contradiction. You can't be careful. If you're careful, my band Pigface, last time we played Chicago, 5 drummers, sometimes 7, and that includes Danny Carey, like, fuck off, 3 bass players, spectacle, 22-foot high scenery that glows in the dark, you can't be careful. But you have to understand that you are putting every single thing at risk. So you better be sober and on top of your shit in every single aspect. The band Pomplamoose did a tour maybe 5 years ago and famously lost 12 grand. And that's the guy who started Patreon, smart guy. And I looked at their tour, I forensically put it back together, and using a bunch of my ideas, nothing huge, I made them, I think, $250,000 profit. And and that's what you're up against. You're not up against a level of intellect that cannot be attained. You're up against 500 things a day that you need to juggle. and stay on top of, and understand if you could take care of something a month before the tour, you'd fucking better take care of it, because someone's going to break an arm. There'll be a currency will change. There'll be an airline strike. Half of the clubs you're playing will close.
The backline won't show up. It's the power is different.
Yeah.
The t-shirts didn't get there. Yeah.
And when you do this for a while, you're like, yeah, of course. How we have a couple of contingencies in place. Let's do that. And it's an art form. It's an art form.
Were you tour managing early on as well, or was this just from observation of other tour managers? Or that role has sort of evolved over the years. I was sort of always in. We didn't have enough money or enough fans to really, allow us to spend money on things we didn't need. So anything I could do myself, I would. So the tour managing was something I would do. I would drive ourselves, wherever possible. And
I mean, I think I was just paying attention, and I saw a lot. I would always look, I see the routing. If we move Baltimore 2 days, but boom, we lose that day off. We get to add Providence right next to Boston, but sure. We can co-promote the radios. And fucking agents hated me. Like, oh, fuck. They couldn't just say it's not a big college town, and because I knew my shit, the turning point for me was a Killing Joke show in Texas. And I sat behind the kit, and I like boom, 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 test out the bass drum. I'm like, oh, I say to the monitor guy, turn on the drum boxes. I want to hear I need to hear that, because I had bad knees, and I didn't want to blow out my knee because I couldn't hear the drums. And the monitor guy says, the drum boxes are on. I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. And so I say the front of house guy, I'm like, okay, turn on the house so I can at least hear the boo boo, the slap back.
Yeah.
And he says, it's on. I'm like, oh, fuck. And I knew, greedy promoter, the ticket price was too high. It caused fewer people to come and see us. It was going to be a shitty show. I was going to hurt my knees. And it all had to do with the ticket price being set too high by a promoter that was greedy. And I'm like, I just started getting involved in that shit. Like,
it became personal. You could feel the personal effects of a promoter not looking out for the band or for the audience, seeing everybody as lambs to the slaughter, and what that does to the musicians on stage.
And as Geordie would frame it in a different way, which I liked, I might have said, you're fucking up the business, you're leaving money on the table, you're reducing the size of the audience, you're destroying the band's reputation. But as Geordie would put it, you're spoiling my high, man. This wants to be glorious and triumphant. And it's like, I can't hear the drums. People at the back are easily talking to each other instead of being punched in the chest by the bass drum. Yeah. Fuck on.
I feel like shows have gotten quieter and quieter over the last few shows. This post-pandemic, I just feel like, if I hear the guy behind me talking, this is not a show. This is is cocktail music or something, and then I'm here watching a band with big guitars and this guy's telling his wife what he wants for dinner later. No, that's not acceptable to me. As I enjoy loud guitars. That's not what I paid the money for.
Yeah, it might sound weird, but I love jumping into other people's tours, running some Chat GPT in a spreadsheet, and getting mileages, and looking at missed opportunities and areas that could be improved, because there isn't a single agent on the planet anymore that isn't too busy to drop a ball. And these mistakes are going to cost you $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and maybe your house, maybe your love of music, maybe your band. I mean, it's important, dangerous stuff.
Yeah. Well, bands put it all on the line where they're out there on the road. I mean, this is them day in and day out, the health, their, financial security, their relationships. Yeah. Oh yeah, well, I feel like it's a whole other can of worms. We could talk about this. The touring's crazy. Yeah, I mean the biggest thing I think I've felt in my short time has just been the elimination of the word promoter is not they don't promote, and the band is the promoter. You're your own social
Right.
media, content factory more than you are, behind a piece of musical equipment. You have to be the social media, content
Right.
strategist
And
and a choreographer and a videographer and a
yeah,
copywriter and a
and
graphic
you
designer,
need to
and do that all in the van
understand
for 8 hours while you're driving.
understand the culture and the geography. Like, wow, people from Rochester go to Buffalo. So if we're not careful, these two shows could compete with each other. But if we do Rochester at the beginning of the tour and loop back around to Buffalo, Rochester can actually promote Buffalo. They won't get in the way. People from Buffalo will come to Rochester because they don't want to wait 6 weeks. You end up paying to 300 extra people. Well, it's the
Two bites
same
of the
people.
same apple. Yeah.
You sell 300 more tickets across two shows just by doing that. And it's like, it's not rocket science. It's just a million things like that.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Again, yeah. You're the professor in this world. Yeah. Well, Martin, let's talk a little bit more about the show and how do people keep up with you and everything that you have going on in the museum and the label and the records and the bands. What's the best way? Where do people follow you for more?
A good place is my Instagram, Flowers Fight for Sunshine. And in my bio, there's my link tree, and you can see museum events, the Extremities event. We also have a new Patreon. There's maybe 25 posts up on the Patreon. And unlike a regular Patreon where the more you pay, the more access you get, I'm like, nah, I've got fans from 1979 who some are doing great, some of them not doing great. Everybody gets access to everything for $2 a month. You can pay more, but $2 a month. And there's so much stuff is going up on there. That's really a place to lose yourself if you're into this stuff and the behind the scenes stories.
How fun. That's great. All right. Well, there'll be a link down in the show notes. So everybody listening to this, click in the show notes and you can get to the Instagram there and follow for more information. And the big thing is Reggie's November 28th in Chicago. Come out, buy your tickets now. There's a VIP package. What does that involve? Is that meet and greets? Are you
there's the
shaking hands?
Well, sometimes people understand that more. The ultra VIPs are sold out. That includes, we're going to set fire to a cash register under the L tracks behind Reggie's, which is where we filmed that scene in the Money Is Not Our God video 35 years ago. It might include the dress rehearsals the day before, and that's certainly a hangout. We'll have the venue provide Thanksgiving dinner, which we can't give that to everybody for free, but it's like maybe $10 or $12. So yeah, all of that stuff, hanging out.
That's great. Yeah. Get the personal experience. Fantastic. All right. Well, go. You can go to reggieslive.com, find links to the shows there, and where you can buy the tickets. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Martin, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure meeting you. I've been humbled. There's so many things we have not talked about. I'm sure there's a million other things we can talk about.
I know you're on a time crunch. So just one last thing.
Sure.
Anybody who's about to go on tour or thinking about going on tour and is shitting that, you should be shitting your pants. But you can get me through my Instagram. I'm happy to have a look at your tour and go, have you thought about this? What about that? I can spend half an hour and help you. I'm happy to do that in any way I can.
You're too kind. That's incredible. What a great offer. Yeah. I mean, I just always learned the hard way on those tours. It was always, never stay in the big cities, drive an hour out. You save a couple $100 and your van's likely safer. Your gear's safer outside of, little cities and things like that. And just, Yeah, that was always our thing. Just tighten the belts while you're on tour, and it was the days off, Watt said it best, was if you're not playing, you're paying. So if you can't afford that day off, you should be playing every day. That's why you're out there to work. You're not on vacation.
And also stay with people. I'm socially anxious. I certainly was in the early 80s, but the people whose floors I slept on, I'm still friends with today. Tom in Cleveland introduced me to Trent in 1985, So I mean,
You never know,
stay
especially
on.
when you're young and you're starting out. That's where your back and your hips and your shoulders, because you can use some floor time there. As you get
Yeah,
older,
yeah,
that cheap bed in a Motel 6 does you a lot of good in your 40s. But those
yeah,
early
yeah,
years, you need to be making friends. You need to be sleeping on
yeah,
floors, and we got
yeah,
pretty good at stealing loaves of bread and some stuff from supermarkets. Those early tours, we go in with a little backpack, a
yeah.
little messenger bag. Okay, everybody, keep a lookout here. Keep the van running. We're just going to go in and grab some food real quick. And you save,
Wow.
you're feeding everybody for $10. I mean, we weren't against that.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
cook up a meal at
well,
some kid's house we were staying at. Like, he never had Indian food
right.
before. We're like, all right, we got the stuff in the car. Let's go. We got lentils. We're going to make a big pot of rice. We could all eat. You could feed 10 people for
There you go.
for $5. With like beans and
And,
rice and.
and
You know,
and how sad is it that like 1985 me is like, oh, lentils,
right? Yeah,
like,
let's go.
yeah, let's go. Yeah,
It sounds like
yeah,
sound check's about to end. Let's go. I love
yeah,
that in Europe too. Yeah, the big squats where there's got the giant
yeah,
pot of lentils and rice going. You're like, that's what you need. That's going to keep you
yeah,
going down the road. It's going to keep you
yeah.
healthy.
But
Yeah.
it's those people who you cooked food with who'll say, hey, I know your show's in 2 weeks' time. I haven't seen any flyers up yet. These people will help you solve some very basic problems
Oh yeah.
that you're going to encounter. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep. Fantastic.
really
Mark.
nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, see ya.
Awesome. How cool is that? Martin Atkins. Whoa. The stories about PIL and touring and just what a great guy. I really appreciate you taking the time, Martin. I appreciate everybody taking the time for listening to our podcast. Thank you for subscribing. And if you enjoy the show, please recommend it to your friends and turn on the automatic downloads and share the show with your friends. If you're into this kind of thing and you have friends that are also into this kind of thing, let them know. Don't be shy about it. We don't have to gatekeep this. This is for everybody. It's a big party. Come on, everybody hop in. Come to the coast. Have a few laughs. Have a few drinks. Yeah, Christmas time is upon us here. We are going into the holidays, kicking and screaming, flailing and wailing. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, everybody. I will be back on Monday with Aaron Farley to talk about all things going on in the world of Randy Randall and Aaron Farley and everything else, and talk about this incredible interview. If you made it to the show this weekend, if you make it to the show, have a great time, and yeah, just do it to it. All right. Bye.
This wants to be glorious and triumphant, and it's like I can't hear the drums. People at the back are easily talking to each other instead of being punched in the chest by the bass drum. Fuck off.